On the lens. This is episode 111. It is a very unique episode this week. We are doing it via Facebook Live. So normally we do the show via Google Hangouts Live, but this week we're going to do it via Facebook Live. So let's see how this goes and how it will hopefully play out. I'm optimistic. I think it will go well. But then again, I'm always optimistic. So, what we're going to talk about tonight is not what we're going to talk a little bit about what we planned to talk about. But, my guest I planned up could not make it tonight. So, we're going to be talking about things a little bit differently. But, before we get into that though, let me introduce first my co-host, Zach Roberts. Zach, say hello.
Hello. How goes it?
It goes well. It goes well.
That's good. That's the best you can ask for these days.
Indeed. If you're watching the show, you might notice, if you've been watching the show on YouTube a while, you may notice we're a little bit different because you can see each person on screen pretty much equally in terms of the window at the same time. So guys, keep that in mind. Don't pick your nose when someone else is talking because they're not going to take up the whole screen. Anyways, Zach,
this is like a CNN show gone wrong. Like Don Lemon at 11, be like, this is where we all talk at all the same time, and then somebody makes a GIF out of it. Right?
There we go. Okay. Yeah,
perfect.
This show will be rife for GIFs. Anyways, Zach, you weren't on last week. Why? What's your explanation?
Zach, why?
Yes. Sadly, I'm really far behind on all of my deadlines. So usually after the weekend, when I hadn't done anything, then just Monday comes along and I start going, oh my God, they're gonna kill my story. So yes. So yeah.
Good. Get focused on those deadlines. All right. Well, we got a nice 3-panel group for you all tonight, all assembled at the last minute. Saying thank you all guys for coming on here at the last minute. I appreciate it. We'll start from our correspondent from Down Under and current and recurrent guest, Mr. Craig Stampfli. Craig, how you doing, buddy?
Very good, thank you. Coming to you all the way from the future.
Nice. Like you're a day in the future, right? Or how many? 12
Correct.
hours?
It's,
okay.
It's a Tuesday.
So it's like Mad Max over there, right? It's all like
correct.
desert.
It is. Tumbleweeds and semi-trailers, all sorts of stuff.
Nice.
Once a week when you're on the show, we get to know at least 12 hours from now or whatever that there was not a nuclear explosion
exactly
and we're all
right.
not dead.
Yeah. There you go.
So
right. It's all good for the next 12 hours.
Yeah, we're good. Thank
what
you.
kind of tweets have come out from various people of authority? And I can't. You should let us know what they're going to tweet ahead of time.
No problem.
Our other guest this week, returning guest Alex Tetreault from Canada. Hey, Alex.
Tetreault.
How's it going, buddy? Tetreault.
Yeah, it's all good. Doing fine.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's okay. It's all good.
You're Canadian,
so North. Yes. It's all good. It's been butchered much worse than that before, so you're good. Doing fine.
What you been up to since the last time you were on the show?
Moved, lots of things, deadlines, shooting. Like, I can't complain. Like, I'm busy all the time, and so it's you're busy, you're complaining, or you're not busy and you're complaining. So I'm busy and complaining. It's good.
Cool. And joining us all the way from Chicago, right? Or Philadelphia?
Yeah.
Okay.
Chicago.
The most dangerous city in the country.
The most dangerous, probably as dangerous as Australia. Definitely,
If spider bites and snake bites were drive-by shootings, Chicago is.
If Donald Trump were to be believed, this is the most dangerous place. Although, I spent all day shooting on the South Side today, and I'm perfectly fine and happy. So
Shooting or photographing?
Photographing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just got to make that clear. Fair enough. It's hard to tell sometimes with America.
Well, I was going to say, you don't have the giant spiders or the, whatever else, giant snakes and everything else going on there as bad as Australia. So it can't be that dangerous. Hey, anything new? I know obviously you were, the Chicagoist, right? Closed down.
Yeah.
Last time you were on. How
down.
you been doing since then?
Just picking up as much freelance work as I possibly can in as many other places as I possibly can. So I've had a wide variety of different things I've worked on, mostly still somehow attached to politics.
Yeah.
So that's been good. The last big story that I wrote came out for a magazine called Injustice Today about Gary McCarthy's tenure here in Chicago, as he is all but come out and said he is going to run for mayor. So that was a fun story to work on, and I even got to work in some of my old photos from protests that had happened, 5-6 years ago, up until now. So that was a cool project. So, but yeah, pretty much just, taking whatever I can get wherever I can get it.
Okay, great. I know that the other counterpart we had on the show that night has now started working for a newspaper, right? He's like the night reporter.
That's right. Tyler LaRiviere, yes.
Yeah.
My colleague, former colleague at Chicagoist, is now the night guy for the Sun-Times. So a lot of what he does is usually crime related, or it's mostly crime related. But I think he's been there for about almost a month now, maybe, and he's really liking it, and he's doing a bang up job. I get to see his work all the time, and so far it's been great.
And the weird thing is, I think that Around the Lens can take some level of credit for the hire, because it was basically Marcus, one of our former guests, Marcus DePola, is an editor there now and hired him. So it's a very small world of the Around the Lens. He didn't get the job because of Around the Lens, but just the fact that we're all in the same circle, it helps,
Indeed.
This is why networking helps.
Indeed.
It does.
So come on Around the Lens if you're looking for a job, and
You're guaranteed to find work if you just come on our show. That's not overselling it at all. That's not a guarantee that doesn't pan out. Just come on the show, get a job.
Do not sue us if this does not happen.
never mind.
I'm sorry, my lawyer is telling me that I can't say that.
So, by the way, if anyone's listening though and wants to give me a job, that would be awesome. But
Or
hey, come on to Ottawa, man.
Hey, you got a job? I'll be a refugee tomorrow.
come up, live in this
Political and
car.
economic.
Anyways, yeah. So putting people together. That's what it's all about. Getting people to network with each other. So.
Well, that's love.
Indeed. That's love, and that's what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about love. This is our Valentine's Day episode, so we have to talk a little bit about this. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it because, like I said, I had a married couple who were going to talk about the trials and tribulations that come with being in a relationship in this career field. But no, we're going to talk about any experiences we have. I'll go first since it's my topic and I brought it up. And then you guys can, chime in whatever potential experiences you may have had. I have dated other people who were in the visual journalism career field, and I would say that for the most part, the experience, there was no, first of all, the relationships never lasted long enough to go into anything, but there was never any, the fact that we were both that same job never really factored in at all. It was just... that's how I met them, either I met them, we were going to school at the same time, or we were working in the same, career field, and, we created relationships that way. And it's just kind of like, you date, so like if you're working in an office, right, you're going to tend to migrate towards the people in your office that you're going to date with just because they're the people who are around a lot of the times, and that's kind of all it was. So there was no real relationship that developed that lasted, or anything where I could say oh yeah, our love of this career field brought us together and kept us together, because that didn't happen. It was just really proximity, and these were people I worked with or people I knew, and it just so happened that we had a relationship for a short while. And that's about it. That's the whole of my experience with any sort of finding in the world, the love world with regard to this job. I would say if you are, in this career field looking for love, good luck. It's not easy. Never is in anything, but I would say, but if you can find somebody who shares your interests, great. I ended up finding a great wife, who has no real interest in photography whatsoever. I've tried to imbue the love of photography in her and give her DSLR cameras and everything and try and teach her the craft, but It's really just not an area that, she will ever be in it to the same level I am. But that's okay. I don't have a problem with that. I am happy being the photographer in the family and taking all the family pictures with my high-end, fancy, expensive cameras. And that's perfectly okay. There's nothing wrong there. But let me throw it out to you guys. Again, have you ever had any experience dating anyone in our career field, or an interest in, have you ever thought about the idea of it? Like, oh, this might be nice to date somebody who, has my same sort of career interests and whatnot. Or is it just not something that has even ever crossed your mind? All right. Well, that's as far as I thought this conversation would go.
Great show, Dave. Thank you.
All right. Well, this live stream is just going great.
I can jump in this one. It's interesting. I've never dated someone in the field. I'm the one dated in the field, I guess. But my wife, she's my number one fan to start with, which is kind of cool. But she's also not a photographer or into these things. But our relationship is interesting because she works for the government in one of those fields or agencies which we shouldn't talk about online type thing. So we all know what this is about. But that creates an interesting dynamic at home where she works in that field, and I'm into photojournalism, and the two worlds are fully kind of, I wouldn't say opposed, but like it makes for interesting conversations where, like you're at parties at work or with other journalists and, hey, what does your wife do? I'm like, do you really want to know? And so, no, it's interesting. So like it raises eyebrows on both sides of the conversations that way. So, but we make it work. She does what I do. I respect what she does. We're fully kind of disciplined and making it like separate and not like encroaching on each other or whatever. So it's an interesting. It's interesting. Like you never know what's going to happen in the coming years or whatever. But for now, it's working. I mean, I'm not saying for now it's working like it's, sorry, honey, like, no.
Open foot, insert mouth. There's no wrong with that.
We'll have to do an Adam and it's like, and this couple is no longer together after the show.
So since it doesn't seem like many of us had experiences dating within our own career field, how has being a visual journalist affected our sort of ability to have relationships, or affected our relationships, with people who aren't visual journalists? So, dating people or being married to people who aren't that career field, has it ever been sort of an issue? Has it been something fully supported by the other person? Has it led to, breakups or issues, or, has it ever played any factor in any of your relationships whatsoever?
I think I'll jump in quickly and just say, I think for me, my wife has been very, very tolerant for the last few years, particularly as I've been trying different things with visual arts and things like that. Never seems to be concerned when I'm off to shoot models or do an art nude workshop or something like that. It's not something that she seems to be perturbed by. She's always sort of seemed complimentary about the photographs. And now, as I'm booking more work with models and things like that, it doesn't seem to be an issue. She's not upset by it. So I think that's encouraging. One, obviously I'm not doing the wrong thing by anybody, but there's always that perception if you've got a jealous partner that there's that stress involved, whereas I think my wife's obviously very trusting and knows that I'm not messing around. So get out, do what you need to do in terms of making a lovely image. And can you please bring in the laundry on time for a change?
I think it's like the same thing if you're an actor and you're doing, scenes, kissing scenes and all these makeout scenes with like extremely hot women. And then, of course, how's your significant other supposed to feel about that? Not that I've had any of that experience like that, or I think any of us had, but yeah, I can see the same idea.
Yep.
A friend of mine, he does these portraits of not just women, but people, men and women, and they're all nude, but they're also covered in paint head to toe. And he takes pictures of them nude, but he does the work with his wife. So, he's the photographer and she like assists. So I say if you're going to be in sort of weird situations like that, bring them involved. Have them be part of the fun.
For sure.
That's one way to get around that.
For sure.
Honey, I need a spritzer.
I've always tried anyone who's actually anyone who I've dated or like started or whatever. I've always tried to at least figure out a way to include them in some of the work if I can. Obviously, not like covering, violent protests and stuff like that, but try to bring them in and be like, oh, I could really help. Like,
Can you hold this
a couple
tiki torch?
hours, and things like that. So that's trying to get them to actually have an interest in my work. And I mean, it's surprising the few people that I have dated and a few people that are at least interested enough in me. Usually it's because of my work they become interested in me. So at least that's how they get to know me. So, I mean, I think it would be difficult for me to ever actually date somebody who's not interested in this line of work. And, even if they're just involved politically, usually that's most of the people I've dated are at least like political people. So they go to protest or they have that level of interest. So, but yeah.
Anybody else? Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm more in the, I'm closer to Zach than anybody else here. I mean, but I think the only thing is maybe, I mean, I haven't really dated anybody seriously in many years, at least, in a traditional sense or anything. But I think the only thing that I could see becoming an issue, is like a time factor, right? Cause I do a lot of, I either do a lot of breaking news or things like that, or I do, just projects that take a long time, take a lot of hours worth of investments. And I could see that becoming a problem with somebody who maybe doesn't understand, that kind of field where it's like, well, why? I mean, I don't understand. Why were you out in the street for, 16 hours today? Or it's like, you go shoot something that lasts 8 hours and it's like, okay, well now I got to go home and, edit, file, write, all these other things. And so I guess I could see that if people didn't understand that, but I would hope that like, that's a thing you explain to somebody and you hash out kind of right away. Like, hey, I mean, like I said, it's been a very long time. So, but I mean, that would probably be the first thing I would tell somebody, in a serious way, or just like, hey, this is what I do. This is my life. We'll try to work some stuff out, whatever. But
I say wait till the wedding. Make it part of the vows.
After the vows.
Yeah, after.
I mean, I'll put it this way. I don't know how I would do a lot of what I do if I had, a traditional, relationship with kids and things of that nature. Like that would be, I think, probably difficult because I'd probably never see them.
Also, you wouldn't be able to afford them. That's the problem. I mean, that's always the problem too, where if you really were, especially if you work in freelance journalism, like 100% freelance journalism, the idea of like, oh, well, I don't know how we're paying for all of this. And so if nothing else, I think your significant other would figure out what you do for a living very quickly. And that's to me a big, that even almost more so than the time commitment, because I mean, a lot of jobs, like if you're a nurse or you're a doctor or something like that, you're gone, you work 72-hour shifts and crazy stuff like that. But it's the fact that, oh, I don't know when this paycheck, I don't know when I'm going to get the money from this assignment that I shot in June is actually going to come in. So can you cover rent? Like, I mean, I swear that's actually why I think a lot of journalists get married or at least get into relationships is because there's like, well, at least somebody will be able to pay the rent on time and they'll just be able to get them back. But
I can confirm that.
Yeah.
My wife works with the government, so we're covered. Yeah. We're good. Like, actually. But I mean, honestly, like I'm ex-military, right? So like I gave that up so I could have the family going up. But today, that's kind of the agreement we had. Like, hey, listen, you're going to be the moneymaker, which kind of is making me super privileged in that sense because it's what allows me to do this as a freelancer. And we all know that the pay is not good. So
what?
Yeah. What?
We've never covered this topic before on this show. We should probably talk about this.
First time.
And then more. But like,
well, it's an interesting concept that you bring up, Aaron. That your job really prevents you from having the type of traditional, spouse plus kids type relationship. Is that something you consider Like, do you think you'd have to change careers in order if you wanted something like that?
Probably not, because I don't really necessarily want something like that, at
Right.
least at this moment in my life. So I've never really given it that much thought. I mean, I've given it thought to say, you know, well, if this was me 10 years ago when I was in an extremely, you know, serious long-term thing, you know, where those things had been discussed, maybe I would have, you know, reconsidered certain things. But I mean, that just hasn't been a thing that I've really cared all that much to think about over the past, say, like 6 years. So, you know, I don't know. I would just, that's all I got is,
I like it. Yeah, I mean, it is, you know, obviously if you're going to go the standard traditional married life and the kids and all that, it's going to be something that you have to adjust for. And, you know, you can't necessarily be the free-willing, work-a-day sort of photographer. Like we were just talking about Tyler La Riviere, and he, you know, like he's doing the night shift right now. And I mean, you know, I can't imagine you could hold a job like that and try and maintain a relationship.
He's also 12, so but
well, still,
I joke with him all the time. No, you're far too young to be like this concerned and this focused and this worried that like you haven't reached this point in your career. And I'm like, I'm 36 years old, and like just now I feel like I've reached some level, you know, of where I should actually be making a living and being actually, you know, at that point. Now I'm getting pissed off about that. But.
Yeah. Don't worry, Zach. Once you hit your 50s, that's when it all comes together for you.
When my already like screwed up shoulder is just in constant pain and my back and everything else, you know, yeah, totally.
You mean like you've been in the military too? But I agree with like Aaron's points on this one. Like I'm also 37. I have a wife, kid, and I'm doing the freelance thing right now. And that's probably our main point of contention in the family, I guess, is that while I don't exactly work like 60, 70 hours a week, my hours are all over the place. And that's really what's, as much as she's respecting what I'm doing. Yeah. Like I can see it, like, hey, honey, I gotta cover this tonight. Like you gotta take care of it. Go pick up the kids' school. I can't do it. Yeah. So it's there. It's friction. It's logistics, like nightmare, I guess, in some ways. So it's doable. Like we're kind of making it happen. So yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm still here. We still got a family. We're good. Yeah.
On me, I don't even know how to begin to tell somebody, oh yeah, hey, by the way, I'm packing up for a week and going to Oklahoma to shoot The Gathering of the Juggalos. And then a month later, I'm going on tour with a publishing company for like a month.
Open it up with the Juggalos.
That's right. Lead with the Juggalos, follow it up with the other one. Yeah, it's something.
It works though. Like once you've found that someone, or not necessarily that someone, but like, if that person is not okay with what you're doing, it makes it easy for you to just move on. You know, it's just.
I mean, my biggest thing out of all of it is that I'm, especially as of like this past like 6 months or so, where I've gotten death threats and things like that. I'm just happy that I don't. I mean, I'm happy that I don't have anyone at all, like outside of, you know, exes that are still friends and stuff like that that are close, that I don't have to really even consider about that. And thankfully all my family members have different last names. So, but that's one thing. It's like, I'm going to spend the next year working on a documentary about white supremacists. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm really, really happy I don't have a significant other right now, that I have to be like, okay, so, no public information is put online about anybody for the next year. And yeah.
I have to kill all my social media accounts, and that way you don't know.
Yeah.
There was
no photos of children, no anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there was a podcast I listened to called S-Town, and the reporter has a African-American wife, and he was going out into the Deep South as a white guy. He didn't worry about himself, but he worried about, obviously, someone finding out he had a mixed race relationship, and so he, hid all his social media accounts so no one could find that out. So, not that that's going to apply to you, but, obviously that's something to consider in any kind of relationship. Especially if you're covering something that obviously is contentious like that. Just tell your future wife, Zach, to keep her last name, and then you don't have to worry about it.
I would anyway. No one should have the last name Roberts. It's a It's a generic punishment that
The Roberts line dies with you.
Dread Pirate Roberts.
Yeah,
It
actually,
should.
my wife has her last name still, but our kids keep my name. So there we go. That's the compromise. But
Same here.
there you go. But it's interesting, Alex. Because I kind of see a little of myself in sort of what you're doing, because at some point I will move on from my current career and I'll have to find something else to do. And I have considered the concept of freelancing after I leave my full time.
You're still with the military, right?
I am, yeah. So
Yeah.
my hope is I can retire from the military and use that as a way to sort of have my cushion to be able to do other things potentially down the road. And freelancing is something I have considered. So knowing that it is something that you go through, and whatnot, and it's obviously a point of contention, but also something I think obviously your wife, understands, because obviously if she didn't, she'd probably tell you like, no, go find a regular job if you want to do a job or something like that. Or, it's because like I'd love to do like different things where again, like, like Aaron who's traveling or, something like that, or just do cool things where you're traveling around. I mean, if you're going to, have you had instances where you've had to go away for an extended amount of time to do a shoot or something? And how is that sort of, washed out in the family there?
Not yet, but it's been clear it's my intention.
Yeah.
Like that's it's one of the main reasons I was in the military to start with.
Yeah.
And it's also one of the main things that got me into photography as well. Like it's calling me, and it's something that I'm clear with her, and it's like, yo, honey, it's gonna happen. Like I'm gonna go at some point. I'm gonna be gone for a while. But the thing is that I'm also super privileged again because I got an amazing family network.
Yeah.
So if I have to go for a few months, I just call my mom, who's retired, and like, hey mom, you mind like hanging out like a few days once a week, and she'll be here 2 days a week to hang out, to help.
Yeah.
She did it like I had to leave 3 months to go to Africa when when my daughter was 4 months old.
Wow.
And my mom was here every week. And
That's
she'll
nice.
do it again. She's retired. So yeah, so like not everybody has this, and that's the thing. I'm super lucky. Like it's crazy, and people should hate me for this. But it's lined up for me. It's kind of actually somewhat made it easy. And I guess I'm not a reference for this, but we've gone through some rough patches. She had cancer last year.
Oh man.
And we just kind of wrapped this up. She finished treatments and everything is fine. So I kind of like put the kibosh on like going on any long-term assignments or whatever for a little while, but now it's she's getting back to work slowly. So I'm looking forward to actually getting out there. So it's going to happen, but that's a key thing. Your network of support.
Yeah.
If you're able, like anybody in the military will tell you that too. Like if you have that family support going on, that's the most amazing thing you can have to allow you to do those things. But she wouldn't be happy about it, but she won't stop me from doing it either. She'll respect that. And so I love her for that.
Oh. Happy Valentine's Day.
Yes.
You guys got anything planned for the big day?
No.
Good.
I should probably get something going.
Yeah. Craig, anything planned for the big day? Do you guys celebrate Valentine's Day in Australia?
We do, but I think my wife, back to what we were talking about spouses working and things, so we can sort of do the freelance stuff. My wife's working full time.
Yeah.
And so she's actually got, I think, looking at the calendar, late shift. So she works for Red Cross at the Blood Donor Center. She's a nurse, loves her job. She gets to travel a little bit actually now. So I'm the one that's stay at home.
Okay.
But I think she'll finish and get home about 9:00.
Oh, wow.
Tomorrow night. So I don't think we'll be doing anything. We don't normally do anything. We save it up for other things. We'll go out when we can get rid of the kids, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so at the moment she gets the odd week away to work at other parts of Queensland or New South Wales. And it leaves me at home with the kids, which is new for me, something we've only been doing for the last couple of years now. Whereas before I started doing photography as a business, I had a career in oil and gas. So I traveled all over the world. And mine was always sort of short notice quite often.
Yeah.
And I never knew how long I was going to be away for. So I think my longest trip was 9 weeks. pack up, go, and just get in touch, drop an email, send a text, and then when I'd finally know I was coming home, I'd give her a call or something like that, saying I'm at the airport. And for years actually, we particularly out of Asia, some of the offshore rigs out of Asia, you had no internet, you had no phone calls, so I would be gone, and it wouldn't be till I got back to the beach that I'd be able to give my wife a quick call to say, look, I'm back in Vietnam. I'm on such and such a flight. I'll be home in 2 or 3 days.
Right.
So she copes very well with that, coped very well with me going away. And it's now a bit of a role reversal. And it's nice I get to see my kids on a morning. It's very, very rare that I don't sort of watch them go out the door, jump on the bikes to go to school.
Yeah.
And I'm normally quite often home or very close to home when they get home from school on an afternoon. So it's nice.
Okay. Cool. Well, I think we've talked about this long enough. I'm not going to ask Zach and Aaron what they have planned for Valentine's Day. Probably involves drinking mostly. But anyways, let's talk about journalism.
I picked a bad week to quit alcohol.
There you go.
Like a long week to quit smoking.
Bad
I'm
week to quit
so
dark
sorry,
roast.
Zach. Sorry.
But let's talk about visual journalism, specifically free photos. We've talked about giving away your stuff for free on this show, and kind of our negative sort of overall opinion of the concept. I think we can all agree that if you do produce content, you should charge for that content. You should apply a value of some kind to it. Even if it is small, it's better than giving it away straight for free, because it tends to devalue, the overall whole of what we do. And it tends to, lead on sort of this, general misconception that, imagery does not have a value to it. Which is probably why everyone was stunned when, the organization, tell me if I'm getting this wrong, Poynter, they published a story. They're the global leader in journalism, and they published essentially highlighting, resources where you can find images that are copyright free, that are free, completely free, and you can use for the backstory. This is a series of articles that they're writing that highlight different tools that visual journalists, well, mostly journalists, can use helping tell their storytelling. And from like a surface level, if you're not a photojournalist, if you're just somebody who, does journalism at a surface level, I could see sort of the value in this, and probably the value they saw in sort of presenting these resources to the public is that, I'm writing these articles and I need a photo to go with it, and I don't have a photo department, and, I just need a photo to help illustrate the story so that when I publish it to social media, it has an image attached to it and it shows up better when it publishes to social media. So I just need something quickly for free that I can put on there. And again, the backlash from this article has been resounding, and we've seen, a lot of negative responses to this. Probably the strongest of which came from one of our former panelists, Marky Johnson, who we will have on the show here hopefully on Thursday, but to talk, directly about his sort of impact and how this has impacted him. But the overall sort of discussion around this has been that how can a site that, espouses the importance of journalism so denigrate the resource that is visual journalism? It's like no one is creating an article where you can get free written stories to, put with your photographs. So why is a place that creates journalism saying, hey, here's ways we get around paying people for creating work? So I'm going to throw it out to you, Zach, because you have very strong feelings about this. We've talked a little bit about this on Sunday, but go ahead and kind of talk to us about your perspective on this, and then we'll throw it out to the panel.
So first off, you should know who actually wrote these articles. The vice president of I think he's the vice president of Poynter, is formerly with the Tampa Bay Times, I believe, who he oversaw basically killing the photo department, which is a famed photo department, multiple Pulitzers. It's one of those places that if you know enough about photojournalism, you would kill to work there. Outside of, the Times and the Washington Post, or that, the big 3 or 4. But So first off, like this guy, the guy who wrote this original piece doesn't really have any respect for photojournalism, but also it comes from Poynter. And for some reason I had the same problem before with Columbia Journalism Review. These two places have this really weird lack of respect for an entire field of journalism, which is photojournalism. Which is I believe it's a cross section. I mean, like we do journalism, we do actually written, whether it be through captions or whether it be contributing to stories, whatever, we do basic journalism, print written journalism all the time. So the fact that we're continually kind of given lack of respect, and I say that CJR and Poynter don't ever give respect to photojournalism by the fact that they're both nonprofits. They're both, at least I know CJR is pretty well funded. And both of them continually use either free Creative Commons photos to illustrate articles about how important journalism is. CJR, I've written several letters to over months or over the past couple of years. Never gotten a response, either to come on the show or to just respond to why they use Creative Commons photos or pulled photos from wherever, which is something that kind of goes to this massive divide, whether it becomes all the way through academic life, through through whether it be college, high school, or whatever, that for some reason visual imagery is maybe not even less respected, but put in a different field than the written word. Now, if you've been to college, you know that you got one of the first things you got was the academic handbook, and you'd read about what using other people's words in your essays or in your reports, what that meant, and you would get potentially kicked out of school. For some reason, even as a photojournalist, even going to I went to art photography school, I never once got a thing, if you use somebody else's image in an essay or something, you will get kicked out of school. It was implied because I was using somebody else's work. But for some reason, if I were to write a report, I wouldn't get that same hit. Never once had that conversation with an English professor or anything, or even in a poli-sci or anything like that. You just don't need to credit their work. And so like this one article, I think one of the reasons it created such an outrage is that this conversation has been brewing when it comes between photojournalists and people who do the written word for newspapers, for magazines, the lack of respect and the lack of, I guess, understanding of what we do versus what they do. And a lot of this has been the fact that you can see and look through the history of newsrooms in that I personally don't know of a single photographer or photo editor who has moved up the ranks to be an editor-in-chief or a editor of the newspaper as a whole. And whether or not that's just because photojournalists don't try to do that or not, I'm not 100% sure. But this has been something other people have written about, and the fact that we don't get the same ability to move up in publications, and thus, when it comes to budget cuts, when it comes to everything, of course, photos are ready to go. And so, yes, I mean, I recommend reading Mark's piece. I mean, Mark puts it in a lot calmer, as Mark is tend to do, a calmer way than I would have put it. And there's a bunch of other, Yoongi Kim also wrote a really great piece over at Medium. I'll try to find that and link it in there. But yeah, I'll leave it to you guys to say more, and then I'll come back in. That's my opening rant.
So I'm going to kind of jump on that opening rant, because I can tell you, as somebody who started writing long before I started shooting photos, the entire reason why I started shooting photos and shooting video was because I wanted something that was original that could go with the story that I was reporting on. You know, years and years ago, before there was a time where, I mean, even people who were regular contributors to certain sites I wrote for didn't get paid or barely got paid anything. And for those, when it came to finding a photo, in one case they had the website had a Flickr pool, and they would always, ask, Facebook or Twitter, and even before then, people would know. There was actually a section on the site before social media was what it is now, which was just called, Around Chicago. And it was just a collection of photos from the Flickr pool that people would just submit. And that was that. I mean, and you got credit for submitting on Flickr or whatever. And then everything else was either pulled from, Getty, because they had, Getty subscription or whatever, or Creative Commons stuff. Now, there was an exception for things like music festivals or, some food writing and things like that. Like either, sometimes for a big festival like Lollapalooza or whatever, they'd hire somebody, or they would pull Getty. And like for, a restaurant opening or a review or whatever, sometimes, the food editor would, knew a guy who would shoot photos. But one of the things I noticed, I was like, there's not a lot that we do. If we're covering this big ass protest or whatever, there's just not a lot of visual stuff going with this, and that's becoming so important. So that's why I got into this, was to sort of help address that problem, where it was like, no, we really can and should be producing our own visual journalism. So let's do that more often. And and so to kind of see, 7 years down the road, I'm glad I did it. It certainly has helped my career and things like that. But to see the fact that, we're still having this conversation about, how people can't pay for things. I mean, it happens to me regularly. I mean, literally at the Women's March, just a month ago, I got a photo out over Twitter, and it was just with my phone. I mean, I was shooting for them, and, I had all my gear with me, but I was like, oh yeah, I haven't tweeted anything from here. So, I tweeted it out, and instantly a bunch of local networks, broadcast networks that had people in the field. I mean, there was definitely a broadcast camera crew. There was a field reporter here. In some cases there were anchors. I'm getting tweeted at by them, oh, hey, can we use this for our social media and for our article? And I'm like, DM me for rates, man. Come on. Like, I know who you are. Well, right. It never happens. But, one thing I got sick of is, seeing networks that have, millions, if not, billions of dollars, major networks, your NBCs, your, CNNs, all of them have, hit people up on social media, at events that there are definitely freelancers at, and even if there are not, even if it's like a crazy, some piece of breaking news, there are no reporters on the ground and, it's a train accident and somebody on the train, got cell phone footage, that person should be compensated. But the idea of paying people for those things is still, I think when it comes to field reporters and to writers and to people who are working day in and day out, I think they know. But when it comes to editors or the higher ups, I mean, I once had a network say, when I said, well, who DM'd me? And I said, well, yeah, what do you pay? The person who was on the other end was like, must have just been an intern or something, because they were like, oh, you mean me? And I'm like, no, I mean, you work for a major news corporation that has a lot of money. What do you pay freelancers? And then the poor guy, I felt so bad because like, the person on the other end definitely felt bad. Like I had called them out, which I kind of did publicly slightly. And I kind of felt bad about it. But at the same time, nobody even gave, this person, it was like 10 or 11 o'clock at night. Yeah. Nobody even gave this person information as to, oh, well, what happens if someone asks for money? Like, they didn't even have a frame of reference to say, oh, well, yeah, okay, here's what we pay, or here's who you need to talk to. Like, it's like the idea never entered into the network's head.
There's no contingency for it.
Right. Yeah. And that, I think, it's practice. Yeah. And that's the problem. Yeah. Is that it's practice.
No, I mean, we talked about the manatee, the kid who took the manatee photo, a couple months ago now. Right. And, he talked to the AP guy and they were like, oh, we have no way. I don't know who to talk to and I don't know what the process is. And that's the Associated Press had a producer on it, which we all know that they pay kind of crappy, but they pay.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what? I've definitely, two extremely small publications that have, literally, I know they have no money. And I'm friends with them. Or, there was a local nonprofit here that reached out to me, regarding a photo that I had shot. They wanted to put it in an ad, and I looked them up and they did really good work in the community. I liked what they did. And I was like, okay, yeah, I can work with you guys on something. But I'm sorry, if you're NBC, you're CNN, you're whoever, I know you have money. You pay anchors millions of dollars you can kick, $200 to somebody for an image. I mean, it's literally nothing to you.
Yeah, I was actually inquiring with a newspaper about, rates for freelancers and whatnot, and they said they don't have a budget for freelancers. So, okay, well, I guess that is what it is. Yeah, it's tough. But let me play the devil's advocate and say, are there, do these resources, are they at all, for anyone? Because I'll be honest, in the past, I have used sources for free imagery because, like, I'd write a blog post, right, and on my personal blog, or something like, for instance, on our little Around the Lens rinky-dink website. I don't get paid to do any of this. I don't have a budget, for my rinky-dink blog, so I might want imagery to go with a story that I don't have to, I don't have on hand, in my archive, or I don't have the time to shoot it, for the lower end sort of person who's just kind of doing their own thing, is there sort of I would say justification in using these sources that they do exist? Poynter didn't make these sources up; they just identified the sources. They still exist, whether or not Poynter points them out or not. Is there a fault to them for using those services if there are people who don't care about putting their images out there and giving it away for free?
So very, very quickly, as a person who runs several different blogs and websites that, I'll write pieces and I'll do, and we'll use Creative Commons photos occasionally for, a website I work for, the mud flats and things like that I just need literally like a shot of candles or something like that, which I have, but whatever. It's to me, the point of this entire kind of the outrage around this: should one of the largest nonprofit journalism advocacy groups be writing such a story? That to me is that's the ridiculous point of it. Is not that these websites exist out there. You can Google and find them, but should the vice president of an organization be co-writing a piece going, here's a bunch of places you can get free work for? Like,
I agree that is, and I think I've done this too. I mean, I've used Creative Commons stuff, for different things, especially when I've done graphic design work for people or other things. And again, they don't really have much of a budget. Or sometimes I've talked to people, I've been like, okay, well, you want to cut this, 3-minute montage video together. I need B-roll footage. And I tell them, I'm like, look, this is what it's going to cost for me to get from, Adobe. It's going to cost a couple $100. Oh, well, we don't have that. I'm like, okay, well, I can go into, I could find something that I know I can use for free with credit or whatever. But it all comes down to, the fact that, again, this is like a nonprofit that doesn't have a lot of money for it. And it's either that or they're going to, so I try to find ways. But again, I don't think it's necessarily the site's problem. It's the fact that, again, you have people that are so high up that want to kind of put that like, oh, yeah, well, why? It's almost making the argument, why pay a photographer or why pay an artist when you can just go to, Creative Commons for free? That's the problem.
Yeah.
It's if you don't, the big caveat, the giant asterisk in front of it is, look, if you're strapped for cash, if you're hard up, if your organization is just starting out, this is a tool you can use. But that's, but God, pay people if you can, and you should. And that's it.
Yeah.
If I can jump on this one. Yes. So yes. The job I did, like in between the army and what I do now, I was working for a local environmental organization doing like activism and that kind of stuff. And we did that. It was an NGO, no money whatsoever, and I'd simply once in a while we'd post articles or whatever, read a blog post, and I'd go on Google and go if you Google image search, and you can find royalty-free images and images that are flagged for use specifically for free, that kind of stuff. And so we'd regularly do that because we couldn't afford to pay for that type of images. Yeah, absolutely. That's the key difference is where is the source coming from? Where is the who's using this? So yeah, no, I agree with Zach on this one. It's not responsible for a leader of a big organization to kind of promote that kind of stuff. But for a small, struggling NGO strapped for cash, absolutely. I would personally provide free services once in a while to one of those organizations if they like ask me, and that kind of become one of my like yearly donations type thing, you know. So, yeah.
Can you write something like that off?
Was that? Yeah.
Can you write that off?
Yeah, sometimes they'll provide you with a tax write-off from that.
Yeah, right. They totally in the States. I work for a nonprofit, and occasionally I'll have like a videographer or something like that literally comes to us and says, "I want to videotape this for free," and I go, "Okay." I'm not going to say no. As a nonprofit that has a budget less than $75,000 a year, I'm not going to say no. But what I will immediately offer is I say, "Oh, we can give you, your services are worth, $500 a day rate. We go, what we should pay a videographer, and that's what we can do that." And so if you do work for a nonprofit, this is something that weirdly it's not often mentioned, but you can donate services. I assume at least under the new tax bill that this isn't completely obliterated, this idea, but you can donate services, and you just have to send them an invoice, and then they usually should send you a I forget what the form is, but they send you the note saying that you've donated these services. So,
I had a neat idea for an app, and if you're listening and you have the chops, you want to develop it, here's a free idea for you. But an app on your phone that allows you, like, you take the picture, and then it automatically gets uploaded to a site that, you can sell it, like make money off of it. And it also gets automatically submitted for copyright with the copyright office, so you got the copyright and you got the potential to make money off of it. Just through an app on
actually,
your phone.
what's that? There is an app that you can do that, but
no.
There's at least a couple.
Yes,
they're like news agencies basically. They're kind of like wire services, so
okay.
They weirdly actually want you to use. I forget what they're called, but they're breaking news type apps that you take your photo and then they get 50% and you get 50%. Usually the percentage wise differs, but you get a percentage of it. And so weirdly, there was an article, I forget, on Petapixel or something like that a while back, and they were actually focusing on trying to get Lyft and Uber drivers up on the service because they're everywhere.
Yeah.
And they're everywhere where people meet, so they're always they're able to take photos, do whatever, get video.
Yeah.
And most of them have cameras on their cars, so yeah.
Just Uber them out to a site with like a forest fire or a burning building or
what I'm surprised is that Uber hasn't bought them out and become immediately be like, we own all of your services and we'll give a piddling to the driver who's supposedly a photographer. But yeah.
The Uber of visual journalism. We can start that up. If it doesn't exist.
Oh, no. Let us not do that.
The thing is, that's already happened. So,
okay.
It's I won't get into it. It's
So let's say
and I'm the one.
So let's write a new Poynter article ourselves right here, and we want to write an article telling journalists where they can find high quality, properly vetted, imagery. What are the resources we tell them to go to? Again, that are going to be, paying creators for their work, and that's going to help sustain, the industry. What would you give them as resources to go to? Like, where do you get high quality visual journalism, that, is being properly paid for? Do you go to a wire service like routers, AP? What else is that? Is that the answer? Just sign up for an account with them, or?
So, I mean, the first problem is you have to focus on large companies like the ones that Aaron was mentioning beforehand, with that always DM you after you post a Twitter photo and go, hey, can we use your photo for free and for perpetuity on all platforms and internationally? Those people, they have money. They've signed up for agencies. They can pay for photos. They just don't want to.
Right.
The question is, and what I think that the article, if Poynter was going to write an article about this, or if anyone's going to write, there's been a billion articles written about where to get free images and stuff like that. If you don't know where to find any by now also, which is also weird in 2018. At this point, if you don't know where to find free imagery, legal free imagery for your net, you probably shouldn't be running a website, specifically a news website. Like, that's terrifying. Like, you should know that. I knew that back in 2006 when I started, or 2004 when I started my LiveJournal page. But the question is, and here's where in lies a problem, is that if you are to go to wire services, whether it be Neurophoto, whether it be Getty, they are a lot of times they're extraordinarily expensive. If you go to Getty or whatever, to buy a single image for news purposes, they're pretty expensive, as they kind of should be. But so the question is where to find, if you're a mid-level or a small, like a small starting up news publication, where to find that. And this is actually what the problem is that should be questioned. I don't know what the answer to that is. I don't know how much a subscription is to something like, whether it be Neurophoto, whether it be Zumo, whether it be whatever wire service you want them to, and whether that's even something a publication could afford. And I honestly don't even know how to find, other than, I guess, do a dry email to contact one of the agencies. But that information is not really out there. And that's, to actually find pertinent and specific visual content, that is actually difficult to do.
I think, do you mind if I jump in?
Yeah, please.
I've got two suggestions on that. One of them is like for things that are just stock, like I just need a shot of whatever. Like, I mean, I did something where I needed a shot of some people working in a hospital, right? I got the organization, of course, that I was doing this work for to pay for it, but it was just Adobe's stock system. It's like, I want to say that you can go a couple of routes. You can either pay per item, or you can pay for like a monthly subscription. And I got them to pay for like a month or two because I had a bunch of projects I was doing for them. And so it was like $80 a month. So for an organization that has a little bit of money, I mean, not rich or whatever, but you got, I think, about 40 or so photos. And the thing is, it rolled over. So if you didn't use them within that month, you can hang on to it. So that's like, for like a one-time, hey, I'll pay $80 or whatever. And then I could have access for a couple of months in case I need random photos. So that's my idea on that. My idea on, what about breaking news in this city or that city is like, look, every organization is looking at Twitter right now, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, for, when something pops off in a city, anywhere, people are like, oh, we need to get a photo from this. Well, if you're doing what everyone else is doing, instead of tweeting at, the photographer saying, hey, can we use this in perpetuity forever, until free, tweet at them or DM them or whatever and say, hey, that's a really good shot you got. What can we work out? We don't have a lot of money, but, what do you got? I mean, I've had people that have done that for me and I've been like, okay, yeah, let's work something out, and even if it's small, it's something. And part of that, the other thing you're doing too there is, one, you're building a relationship with folks. Two, it is literally the base amount of respect that people deserve for the work they do.
Absolutely.
Even if it's a token donation, right?
Yeah. Even if it's like, hey, I've got $50 or $100, hey, that's still something. And you know what? Honestly, like, somebody like me might take that.
I've done that with a ton of photographers, friends of mine, especially if I know they're already there for an assignment and they're just freelancing. I'll be like, hey, can I use a couple of your images for a story I'm writing? I can give you $50. I'm sorry, you know me. Like, that's the other thing. Build personal relationships in your area, especially if you're a local publication. Get to know photographers, say hello. If you embed their work, give them credit beyond that. Like, if you're going to embed their tweet, which is also kind of a BS thing, but it's legal and you can do it. And if we tweet a photo, we know it's going to happen. But get to know them, have relationships with them. You can usually work out prices better.
Yeah, I mean, if you're embedding, if you're doing a bunch of stories and you notice that you're embedding the same person's tweets over and over again, you should probably just reach out to them and say, hey, it seems to me that you're at a lot of things that we cover. we should work something out. You know?
You're all over our website right now, so maybe we should talk.
But it's just,
I'm looking at you, RT. I'm looking at you.
But I think that still raises the issue: is there's no like mid-tier, mid-level agency. I mean, I don't know. I never worked with Demotics, but was it what was the cost to subscribe to, I guess, Demotics imagery? Anybody know?
It was a lot cheaper to buy imagery, if I remember correctly. I mean, God, it's been years now. But it was a lot cheaper. I mean, I think there genuinely is a need for this sort of thing. I've talked about it building within like kind of lefty media because they really love to do the same what we're talking about here, like The Nation magazine, all these places that have actually, well, The Nation has tons of money, but like I talk to them all the time and go, why do you steal photography? Or better, why do you then get the wire photos from the evil mainstream media that you guys supposedly say aren't covering the news story right? You know, why are you using New York Times photography? Like, why are you doing that? Why don't you pay a photographer? And it's always,
we don't have a photo budget.
We don't have a photo budget. Yeah.
Well,
no, I mean,
And too, this should be extended to videographers or people who do both. I mean, I'm somebody who does both. And it's the same thing where, and in certain cases, you know, I had another friend who's been a guest on the show, Rick Majeski, who was at a thing, and, you know, by virtue of him being friends with Tyler, he had just shot a bunch of video, talked to Tyler about it, offered it to the Sun-Times for some money. They took it, and they're going to pay him, and that's awesome. But this kind of needs to exist for anything visual. I don't care if it's, you know, photos, video, you know, whatever. If you're doing, you know, sketches or portraits in the street, that, you know, that process, building the idea that, yes, you need to offer money. Yes, everyone deserves and needs to get paid. It's an ongoing battle that will forever be ongoing, sadly, until we can make them understand.
Right. So I think this is gonna be like a selfless plug or something, or a selfish, anyways, whatever plug. The outlet I work for is one of those new upcoming like leftist news organization, whatever you want to call it. At the same time, though, they're the ones who kind of went out of their way and hired me. I'm not like staff, but I'm still kind of their kind of main stringer, or like I can work every day for them, more or less. They can't afford me full time yet, but they're still paying me like every week. Like I do a lot of work for them. They give me a lot of access. It's kind of one of those new up and coming organizations who kind of understood that like better photography is a good way to go. So they kind of deserve that kind of highlight. Like they can be criticized for a whole bunch of things that they do wrong, but at the same time, for that part, I'm like, you know what? I'm here because of them. So like, yes, like thank you. And they're going they're struggling for money every day, and yet they're like putting me out there every day as well at the same time. So you know what, like, I don't know.
Like, see the value in having you.
Yeah, I think so, and I hope so. Yes, but yeah, no, it's yes. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I was interrupted. Not you. It's not you. Go on.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I this is the booze kind of getting to me at this point. But yeah, no, like, and so they're kind of like counter current to this, which is really, really. Again, I'm super privileged. What is this? I'm this like white man. Yeah. Anyways, no, I'm super, very incredibly lucky for all of this. And I really wish more organizations would understand this and kind of like put their money out there. And I've been getting a lot of positive comments from people from outside that circle being like, that's kind of really upping their product. You know, it's really upping whatever they're doing. And yeah, I wish, I don't know what, like in the States, it seems to be a bit more dire in a way. Like up here, it's kind of more concentrated. We don't have as much of an offer, like in terms of wire services. I don't know, like here in Ottawa, it's Canadian Press, which is the equivalent of AP, but the Canadian equivalent. that's it. That's all we have. Dave was talking about like what's the budget equivalent of this. I'm like, I've never heard of anything else.
Yeah.
That's all we know about. Canadian Press. Oh, you need photos. Canadian Press. Oh, if you got budget, Reuters. Ooh. But that's it. That's all we have. So
yeah, I was on the web here just trying to see like what it would cost for an AP subscription or a Reuters subscription. You can't find out. They don't publish that. You have to give them your information, and I guess they decide, they figure out a price and they throw that price to you. I don't know. Yeah. But there's no like simple like where you go to sign up for a web service and there's tiers based on what you want. There's nothing like that. At least from the two majors. If anyone listening or watching has any ideas, please by all means leave your comment down below in the Facebook
Silicon
page.
Valley can disrupt.
There you go.
Which actually makes me terrified. Actually, they disrupt photojournalism. I mean, like, great, we're all going to be Uber drivers now on top of trying to work.
Didn't digital cameras disrupt us enough?
Yeah, tell me.
Anyways,
but
no, go ahead, Alex.
No, never mind. It's a really old piece. Never mind. I thought I found something, but I totally didn't.
No, I was just gonna say, like, even like you said, like subscription prices, right? But even if you go beyond that and just look at actual like photo prices, if you're gonna go to a wire service and find a price for a photo, the only like I did the exercise recently to kind of gauge my own. I was approached by an Indian magazine to publish one of my photos, and I was like, I had no idea what to license them for. Yeah. And I kind of went onto those services to see what kind of an equivalent would cost. And the only prices I could get from Getty Images. I couldn't get prices from CP without a subscription. I couldn't get to Reuters without a subscription either. So I don't know if it's the same thing with like AP or whatever wires you guys have down in the States. But I couldn't even get like an image price without having a subscription. So I don't know about you guys, how that status is.
Yeah, I've used AP's calculator that they use.
They have that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can go on AP and you just figure out, because they will determine, like, if you want to license an image from them, they have a general calculator you can use. And I mean, I've never used it myself for my pricing my own work, but I mean, I would imagine that would be a good place to start. But we do need to move on and talk about our last topic this evening. And we're just going to talk about very briefly, just giving our general opinions of what we think of this subject, and then we got to close it out as a show. But deepfakes. So this has been all the rage in the internet here in the last week or so. It's kind of been around for a few months, but only recently blew up because a lot of big time people were talking about it. But essentially what it does is it allows you to swap the face of, for instance, if you're watching a video, it would allow you to swap the face of someone else on that video. So for instance, let's say we could swap Zach's face with my face. And this program would look at video of Zach and would look at video of me, and it could put Zach's face on my face or my face on Zach's face, So that's kind of one use for this software. But the reason this is getting so much attention is because it's been used in sort of the darker regions of the mindscape there, and allowing essentially people to put actresses' faces on different areas of pornography. So that it looks like you're watching pornography with this well-known actress. So that's been sort of what's kind of
suddenly the Google attention. Just went like this.
I know, right? We went like this. But of course.
Oh, I talked about Daisy Ridley and everything, right?
Yeah, and of course, there's also been fun uses for it. Like everybody's using Nicolas Cage's face on everything as well, or The Rock. Or something like that. So it's kind of there are funny use cases for it.
You see,
and I think just from a pure technology standpoint, it's amazing how we've gotten to this point where this technology exists and can be downloaded by anybody and pretty much run on your machine if you have enough. I would say power to it. But I just want to get your all's opinions. What do you think about this from a visual journalism perspective? Is this going to essentially make it much harder to sort of sell and distribute and promote visual journalism or, tell a factual story nowadays?
Well, I mean, I think it's already extremely hard to tell a factual story nowadays because literally nothing is real. Nobody believes anything. Even if you publish video that you shot yourself and were there, people are like, no, this is fake. This is staged. I mean, So yeah, this we're gonna regret this probably pretty quickly. Also, one of the things I just saw, because I had never heard of this, looking it up, is one of the first things I see is a CNET story that says if you like deepfakes, you might be mining cryptocurrency. So I really want nothing to do with this. Like, I could see multiple problems here.
Oh, look, I think Snopes is going to get more traffic eventually.
Snopes.
Everything will become, a Google image search or back search will become a Snopes search. Everything will have to be fact checked, and who knows? But yeah, it's interesting in a technology standpoint, and that we can do that, and it's, I guess, relatively seamless if people are believing it, or relatively seamless. But yeah, it's just one of those things. Hopefully, it'll fade. I wonder if they used the technology for that. They had to get rid of Kevin Spacey from that movie.
No, they refilmed that movie. Are you talking about all the money in the world?
Okay.
They actually hired another actor
I guess so, yeah.
and refilmed those scenes with Kevin Spacey in it. So,
okay,
Marky Mark. Yeah.
It's pretty sad.
Absolutely. No, I think it's a technology that, like, it's there. We're going to have to kind of face it and adapt to it. We can't ignore it. It'll come back to, like, the basics, I guess, of journalism, like a confidence-based stuff, right? So, like, not confidence. Oh my God, I'm stuck between French and English right now. No.
how do you say? Je ne sais pas.
No, I mean, like, it's a trust issue, right? And so it kind of goes back to, like, you like, if you start seeing those movies appearing on Reuters, or those films appearing on Reuters, then I'd get worried at that point. But until then, if it's like on freedomeagle.net, I think you're gonna be fine. So it's just that, right? It's like, we have Snopes for a whole bunch of, like, crap stories that we use, and, like, factcheck.org or whatever. I'm just really hoping that kind of stuff evolves for video and photography as well. I think we're already pretty good. Like, there's already a good community out there on the internet, anyways, on the interwebs, to, like, spot a photo that's been doctored, right? To kind of say, no, this thing is bullshit, and just call it out. So hopefully the video side of things will catch up with this. But it is something we have to watch for and kind of have to be worried about.
But we've got we're now going to struggle with fake video. Yeah. We obviously struggled beforehand with fake photos.
Yes.
And look what just happened in the US with all the fake news. I mean, people took all of that as gospel. It's believable. I saw it on the internet, and you can't tell me that it's wrong because I get all my news from Twitter and Facebook. Yeah. And I mean, this is just going to be one more of those things that we have to train people. People have to be made aware of it, and that not everything you read, see, or watch is true.
Well, and this is again why I think, at least I can speak for the U.S. when I say, basic media literacy should be a thing taught in every school,
sure,
from grade 1 through college. Yeah. Because, yes, when something ends up on, Freedom, Patriot, America Forum, it's literally only 2 steps of separation away from being in front of the president of the United States, who might take it for real. Because, Fox and people mine that stuff, and that stuff ends up showing up on cable news.
Yeah. And so this is where we need to have the videographer or the photographer. This is where the publication needs to be paying for a verified source, so that that what's being put up on your website is 100% true.
Or they need to find websites that have free verified sources that they can go to. Maybe Poynter will write an article
where you can find deepfakes for free.
Exactly.
I do want to highlight I want to thank Matthew Aaron Callahan for watching the show. He has been writing some interesting comments here. I just want to highlight one. He's written, basically, I'm going to create an overlay here with Matthew's question. And he says, I don't think tech will cease, but hasn't journalism community at large been good at weeding out fakes? And I think, for the most part, if you put something out there that's fake, you could get called out, and then your career is ruined. We've seen it many times with people who've put out fake photos and stuff like that. So I think it's definitely something that we as a community can do. But then again, how many things aren't weeded out? How many things get by the overall larger community and just get accepted? I'm sure there's tons of fake stuff that gets accepted, but not the ones that do get called out. Yeah, they get burned for it pretty bad.
I would add, like, how many people actually get called out like decades later from the fake shit they've done? I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear.
We try to, we don't like it, but it happens.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, were there stories of recently like highly regarded photographers kind of getting called out for their old doctored stuff? Who was it? Like McCurry even? Like, was it?
Steve McCurry.
Yeah, right. Like, so, like, it's not. I don't think it's anything new per se. Like, the medium of it is new, but it's always been there.
The problem, what all of these things do, is that it's not even the individual incidences when the fake photo, the fake video, the whatever comes out can be fact checked, can be done away with. But what it does is that it erodes the confidence that people have in the real stuff. And that's honestly, never mind the fact that, like, look, I'm friends with Brooke, the managing editor of Snopes, and she's already got enough stress on her life, I can tell you.
Full disclosure.
Yeah, no, I'm actually co-writing an op-ed piece with her, kind of about this world, but the problem is the other way around. The other big problem is that the people have to take, and this is where education is really important. But people have to. I've lost several Facebook friends. I mean, like, not close Facebook friends, but people who are like follow my journalism, because I have called out things that I go, no, this is not true. What you're posting is fake. And then they go, I literally just got called a snowflake by a senior citizen from Alaska. After I blocked her, because I'm like, okay, I told you this was fake. I described the ways in which it was fake. I sent you an article proving that it was fake, actually from Snopes. And then you kept it up and you kept the post up because, again, and this is actually something I'm writing separately soon, is if you find out something's fake, delete it from your Facebook page. And then go out, and if you find other people doing it, don't keep it around, because what people, as every single person who runs a news site and looks at the social media numbers knows, that no one reads the articles. Like, you can get an article that goes viral on social media, but no one clicks through on it. The numbers are dramatically different. I mean, I can tell you, I have two different tweets that have one has over 20,000 retweets and another one that has over 14,000. I can tell you that I have not gotten anywhere near that amount of traffic on the stories that it links to. And so this is the problem. So if you see something fake, say something and really focus on getting your friends and family to delete it, because this is the only way we can fight this. I actually went to a panel last year at CPAC, Conservative Political Action Committee, where it was literally titled Fake News. And a famous conservative blogger and columnist actually said, look, you can't believe the news. You can't believe, news publications. And they're gonna say that things like, and this was also having a conversation about the environment, things like carbon is good for the environment. Humans do better in a high carbon atmosphere. I'm not literally. I have it on video. It's posted on Discog blog. It's
what clean coal is for.
And we are carbon-based life forms. So
what this guy recommended, and this is probably the most important thing, that when I heard this, I knew that President Trump was going to win through fake news, is the fact that he said, you have a good friend base. You have a good friend base. You can send emails to your friends, and they trust you more than they trust media, which is true. You trust, according to polls, according to everything, you trust your friends and family more than you do the news networks. I mean, that's not true for me, but but I have a couple crazy uncles. But so this is how this stuff is being perpetuated. So the worry for me about any of this stuff, whether it be easier, the fact that Photoshop, the fact that like 12-year-olds can do Photoshop better than I can do it. And I've been, learning how to do it for years. And the fact that this is just going to be a normal thing, or just, you have face swap. I mean, this isn't like really new technology. You have face swap on your phone. You can face swap with your dog. You can do whatever. But this does it so shockingly well.
In video form.
It's in video form. No, on face swap, it does it. You're watching it on your phone.
Oh, really?
You can record it if you want to. I mean, so it made out the original photo. You take a photo. Usually, you don't take a video of it. But what worries me is, again, this is another one of those things that's going to slowly dissolve trust in media. You can't trust. I have to fact check things all the time if it's not from a publication that I know of.
Yeah.
And that hurts, new publications coming along. If you're NBC, your BuzzFeed, your whatever. But if you're a brand new publication, I've had people all the time, starting in my own publication, Visu News, people go, well, I don't know, who can trust that? No, yeah, you're right. But then you click through and hopefully you go, oh, Zach D. Roberts, he's worked for every publication known to man, and we can trust it to some level. Yeah. But you don't know that. And no one does that sort of research outside of, unfortunately, journalists usually.
Well, it's going to, again, nail home the point, which is ultimately be skeptical, of what you see on the internet. Check sources, double check things and whatnot. And I think if you're a celebrity, this is a boon for you, because anything that comes out, be like, that's fake. Somebody put my face on there. That's definitely not me having sex with someone on, that hidden camera. That's not me at all. It's a fake app.
I'm not quite sure Daisy Riley would agree with you that this is a positive.
It's a positive. It's great. It's a complete.
Well, the other terrifying thing is that, who's going to come out with movies now? You can just have any schmuck star in a movie, and then I can just put Willem Dafoe's face on this. I don't know why I said Willem Dafoe, but Willem Dafoe's face on this actor.
That's